Welcome to another episode of my podcast That's Fine With Me. Today we're going to be discussing Joe Goldberg, You series. And I know I've been wanting to do this podcast for quite a long period of time. Unfortunately, the timing isn't probably right because the series were released in April, the final season. But there are going to be a lot of spoilers in today's podcast. That's why if you haven't watched You, it's probably better for you to watch it first and then come back to this podcast. We're going to get started. I want to talk about Joe Goldberg and his personality. I know that a lot of you guys, or maybe some fans of the series, they fell in love with Joe and they thought that she was one of a kind and he was a knight in shining armor. Unfortunately, it's not true. And basically, he's a narcissist with behavioral disorder as well as a serial killer. And yeah, probably not the best combination. I think the problem in someone's mind that he's a good guy is because the narrative is coming from this protagonist, Joe Goldberg himself. That is the main reason why people think he is probably charming and he has this romantic feeling and he gets a lot of passion and love in his actions and he tries to save the world. And especially if you watched season 5, you saw when Bronte, she was kind of like protecting Joe Goldberg and telling the whole truth that she actually fell in love and she saved him from police and whatever. And Joe said that misogyny was cruel to her, and that is the main reason why people believe that Joe Goldberg wasn't that bad any longer and he just had a great PR team that saved his image. Basically, people couldn't see the realness of a person, and that is the main reason why they thought he was saving women. Unfortunately, he wasn't saving women. He was taking pleasure in this kind of like savior complex, and he was taking pleasure in killing people. That's why it wasn't really hard for him to do. He was justifying his own actions. So let's get started from the first season. Let's get started from his childhood and what happened back in the day. He lived in a pretty abusive family. His mom was cheating a lot, and his dad, he tried to abuse his mom, and he tried to abuse Joe, and that is the main reason why he saw this very weird pattern with pain and cheating and scandals, and that is the main reason why he was, from the start, in a family that wasn't functioning in the right way. So when he finally killed his own dad because he saw that mom kind of like was abused in this relationship, and at the same time he knew that there was a gun hidden somewhere between the shelves. I don't remember where it was in particular, but when he saved his mom, in a way saved and killed his own dad, his mom said that he didn't do anything wrong, and she was pretty influential to him. That is the main reason why I guess he thought that to a social standards, and especially reading a lot of books, it wasn't okay and was appropriate. But at the same time, his own mom said that he saved her, and that is the main reason why it was not that bad and it wasn't wrong to kill someone. So then we're moving to a little bit later period of time when he went to this social club with a lot of boys, and he was bullied in this club. And he saw a woman that was suffered from, I guess, her partner or someone that she lived with. And that's why he tried to save her as well. But he knew that it wasn't appreciated by the society to deal with things as he wanted to deal with. And that's why he still probably wasn't sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing. Then he later, when he was a teenager, I guess, went to Mooney's shop. And Mooney himself was abusing Joe Goldberg. He tried to teach him and he tried to punish him. So he locked him in the basement, in this cage. And that was the main reason why he tried to teach Joe that through pain and punishments, you're showing love. So we can see two very important figures in Joe's lives that were saying that killing and punishing was okay. And that was the way to show love. And I guess Joe had no idea what love was because he wasn't loved by his own mom. He wasn't loved by his dad. He wasn't loved by Mooney because Mooney still was pretty weird person, I guess, in his life. Joe was in a dysfunctional society from the start. Okay, so then we can tell that Mooney was teaching him a lot of things, and especially to respect books. And Joe, he worked in a bookshop, then he went to a library later in the future seasons, and every single time he tried to surround himself with books, and he adored books. I guess this is my personal way of thinking about Joe, that he surrounded himself with books because this was a fantasy that was far from a reality. And the reality was harsh, it was bullying, it wasn't loving, and that is the main reason why he wanted everyone to love him. He wanted this beautiful love story from the book, but at the same time, he didn't know how to achieve this because he wasn't taught how to love and how to show this affection to others. That's why he was doing what he knew was the best for him, is to study and do research. So my personal favorite thing, I guess, when Joe was doing a research and when he was studying something, I guess he tried to find answers how to love and how to be a romantic person. A lot of his personalities and a lot of this actions and gestures in the series, I guess, came from the books, and this romantic gestures especially, they were coming from the books. And the second, I guess, idea was he was learning a lot of information from books, and he was learning how to avoid probably some consequences, how to probably commit some crimes and how to get away with these crimes. So that's why I guess books was a really important part of his life, because he was actually copying, kind of pasting some parts of someone's personalities and someone's lives in his own life. He was kind of like putting this reflection of someone else. And what is interesting, when he was meeting other girls and when he was kind of like researching his potential girlfriends, he was becoming the person that he wanted him to be. Of course, deep down inside, he was a hurt boy and he was a monster. But at the same time, he was getting this mask of romantic, giving, loving boyfriend that everyone wanted to have. And a lot of women, they fell for it. Interesting fact about narcissists, that they're picking a lot of their victims, and I'd say their future girlfriends, they are independent. I mean, girls, they think they are independent and they're not going to fall for a bad guy. But every single time they actually fall for a bad guy. And these guys, they know how to behave and act around. I would say another great fact while I was doing the research, I love that Joe Goldberg, he referred to Russian classic, Dostoevsky. If you've ever heard of Dostoevsky, one of his famous novel, let's say, is Crime and Punishment. And it's interesting to say that the idea of the book is when the protagonist, he was having this emotions and agony that he committed a crime, but he didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. So he was torn between his own feelings and logic and heart. And that's why I guess Joe Goldberg, he tried to find some resemblance with the character. The only difference is that Raskolnikov, this is a surname of a protagonist from the book, he was actually torn inside. And Joe Goldberg, he didn't feel anything. He didn't feel like it was bad for him to commit these crimes. I guess it was more like not from a moral standard, but from the social point of view that it's bad, you can go to prison. I guess it was more that way for Joe Goldberg than his actual moral behavior and understanding of the situation. I really like that Raskolnikov, again, surname of the protagonist, if we try to take the root of the surname, it's called Raskol. If we try to translate this from Russian to English, it means split, crack, break. And you can see that this surname is given the plot of the story, that it's going to be about some kind of like emotions and feelings and thinking, and kind of like bipolar, I guess, in a way. You can tell. And that is really interesting that Joe Goldberg thought this was one of the most iconic books, and he really liked this classic, Russian classic, because he thought he was really, really close to the main protagonist of the book. And it's given a lot of information about Joe's personality that he didn't even know how to feel. He tried to find this through the books. Okay, so let's start from season 1, and we're going to just like briefly talk about girls. The first, I guess, girlfriend of Joe Goldberg that we saw and witnessed as viewers, it was Gunevra Beck. And Gunevra Beck, she had ex-boyfriend, pretty toxic relationship with ex-boyfriend. She had a friend who was very noisy and probably not minding her own business. And Joe Goldberg, he found himself as a savior because he made sure that ex-boyfriend disappeared from the picture. Then this friend, one of her friends, disappeared as well. And he was kind of solving her problems. He was creating this fantasy. He was creating this idol. He wanted to be not only savior, but he wanted to shape a new girlfriend. He wanted to shape this girl that's going to be perfect for him with no flaws. And this is about every single narcissistic, I guess, ideology. They're falling in love with a reflection of a perfection or beauty, and I'd say perfect standards, perfect career, I don't know, whatever, just like this fantasy. And that's why Joe Goldberg, when he was studying her social media profiles and he was stalking her, he saw a potential, I guess, girlfriend that's going to become this idol for him in this ideal fantasy in the future. And of course, as a serial killer, he was collecting a lot of stuff from his victims, which is not okay. And not every single narcissist is going to kill people. It's just kind of like a lot of different things going from one part of a person to another one, and it's just like a split, I guess, personalities and split disorders that collect in one person. And of course, a lot of this coming from his childhood, as we talked about that a couple of minutes ago. So Joe Goldberg, he fell in love with Guinevere, but whenever she realized that he was killing her friends and boyfriend, he was a killer basically, of course this kind of fantasy fell apart as well for Beck. And then she was afraid of Joe, and Joe realized that the only way around is to kill Beck because she fell from this idol, and he devaluated her, and then he discarded her. Basically, he murdered her. He realized he needed a clean slate and then go to LA, and then he fell in love with Quinn. Love Quinn. That is a completely different story. That's why I really loved You for interesting characters and for different personalities and different seasons every single time. And he did not expect that love is going to be a reflection of himself. She's going to be another monster. And of course, she was pretty emotional and impulsive. That's why he tried to take everything under his own control, which is very, very popular for serial killers and narcissists. And then he realized that he can't. She's too impulsive, and he needed to clean after her. That's why he tried to make sure that she's going to cheat on him and get through a divorce. And then realized that no, it's not going to work out. That is the main reason why Quinn tried to kill Joe and Joe tried to kill her. He realized that, again, she was an idol for him. Then he de-evaluated her because she wasn't perfect. She was a reflection of himself, another beast, another monster. And finally, he killed her. Then we have Marianne. Marianne, she, again, was broken in a way, and he tried to be this another saver, and he saved her from her ex, and then he made sure that her daughter is going to be back with mother. And for some period of time, Marianne, who was super independent, and she was like, I can do everything by myself. She fell in love with Joe again because he knew how to manipulate women, because he was doing every single time this research, and he know when he should reappear, what he has to say, when he has to be, and with who he has to be. That is not a normal conversation. So narcissists, they take you with this emotional, I guess, investment in your persona whenever they start dating you, but as soon as they realize that they finally have you hooked on, they can manipulate you easily. And that's when Joe Goldberg, he tried to show that he was empowering these women, and he was getting this God complex and this God, I guess, idea that he is creating these women, he's making them stronger. But the fact that he's actually studying them before manipulating them into doing something that he wanted them to do, it's a little bit different kind of story for Joe and for these women. And as soon as these women realized that Joe wasn't that perfect and he was actually an evil spirit in some ways, they tried to escape, and then he knew that they knew too much, and then he killed them. He couldn't stop them from leaving, and he actually didn't even want them to leave. He was so fed up with this old narrative with a new girlfriend that is not new any longer. He wasn't interested in this new girlfriend. That's why he just killed them and moved to another one. That is the main reason why you can see this person, Joe, he was never in love with women. He had this first spark, he had this fantasy, he was idealizing them, he was falling in love with their image and with their kind of like social media profile. But as soon as he found some flaws, he killed them, and he kind of discarded them. Not every single time, but like he tried to kill Marianne, but he didn't try to kill her because it was like split personality. We're going to go to this a little bit later. But you can get an idea in his mind that he wasn't capable of loving. He wasn't capable of loving anyone, and he wasn't even capable of loving himself. I'd say this was purely tactic, manipulative act. Probably he loved himself. I don't know. It's really hard to say. And whenever you say that he's a romantic person, he wasn't a romantic person. He was just craving these feelings to feel these feelings. But I guess it was more like it was too controlling. And whenever he was talking behind the screen, you can tell that it wasn't only emotions. It was just some kind of story he was writing in his own mind. And in the fifth season, we can see that Joe tried to write his first stories. And that's basically what he was looking for. He was looking for a fantasy, and then he tried to put this on paper. Now let's talk about season 4, which I personally love and hate at the same time. I love this season for being extremely unexpected. I loved the idea that Joe Goldberg wasn't talking with Reese. He wasn't talking to this politician. He was talking basically to himself. And they smoothly showed us the split personality, the problem when person tries to deny his identity. And this way, his own mind is kind of like playing weird games with a person. And the best way to show this, first he had hallucinations when he was talking to this Reese politician who wasn't even there all the time. Then he had memory gaps because he didn't remember how he was killing. He didn't remember how he was taking care of those problems. Then he had identity confusion because while he was basically killing Reese and others, he felt like he wasn't doing this. It was Reese who was doing this, and it wasn't him. And finally, we can see that separation from reality. Of course, he was far from reality. But what I really liked about season 4, that finally Joe had to admit to himself that he loved killing people, and it kind of happened with a switch of power and money when he started dating Kate, and Kate accepted Joe Goldberg for everything he'd done. He realized that maybe he could have been loved as a beast and as a monster because Kate was a beast and monster as well. And we're gonna talk about this in a sec, but I would say that is a great, I guess, thing when he tried to act as this protagonist from Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment, and try to be like, I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm not going to take responsibility. I have to catch this bastard and, like whatever. Then he realized that it was him all the time. All this time, it was him. And I guess he felt desperate, not because he felt like he didn't want to kill people. It was more about him losing control. Again, it's all about control and power. And when he lost this power and when he lost this control, he just wanted to commit a suicide. And then he was saved, and Kate was there, and she gave him this new hope that she's going to love him for being a beast. And he finally found this perfect woman that is going to accept him for whatever he is, with the savior complex, with saving her and killing people as a serial killer, let's say, and I would say Kate fell in love with Joe because he was, in some way or form, he was resembling her own father, who actually took care of his, business partners or other people the same way as Joe did. And she was partially responsible for some death and killings in business as well. That's why I guess she felt like she can find redemption in this relationship. But Joe had a little bit different plans, and he thought that Kate could understand his dark side. And he said, yeah, I love the fact that I'm going to be with power, money, and do whatever I want. And finally, we can see season 5. I loved season 5 as well. I loved every single season. For some reason, maybe the third season was a little bit weird because it was just, not so many actions going on, but still I loved every single season. And we got another person, Bronte, which is pretty obvious. Joe can't focus on one person for a long period of time because as soon as he sees the imperfection and he devaluates this person, he switches immediately to another woman. And it doesn't have to be someone extremely great. It has to be someone who needs to be saved, and it has to be someone who has any conversation with Joe Goldberg. More or less kind of like with her own problems. And then he can see Bronte's problem as she was assaulted, not even assaulted, but she was humiliated during the reading of her own romance with a guy kind of like supposedly her ex-boyfriend, but he wasn't her ex-boyfriend. And then he tries to save her from poverty, and he gives her, apartment, food, and service. I love the fact that she always had this idea and vision that she's gonna bust him for whatever he had done to Beck. And then she fell in love with him, and she fell into the same trap because he most of the time is studying you. This time, probably not with social media, but he was just studying her patterns, and she was bringing a lot of the kind of like drama to the whole relationship. And that is the main reason why he fell for it. And she knew that he's going to fall for it. And in a couple of days or in a month or so, she fell for him as well because she thought he was saving her. And especially when he was doing this PR kind of like stuff with one of the twins, and he kind of shared his story and poured his heart out. She said, like, I saved you and I wanted you to be free. And he was like, oh my God, so she accepted me for who I am. I killed for her and she still loves me and she saved me. Oh my God, I was wrong. I was so wrong. And then he tries to save her from some other guy and this like misogyny, whatever. We can see all the time, same old pattern. that he saves. He idealizing people, women basically. He tries to get this fantasy going. And then he finds some flaws, and then he kills. And that's pretty much it. But I really loved the end of the season 5. Whenever he was, when they had this fight between Bronte and Louisa, for instance, her name was Louisa, and Joe, he said, I made you special. So he didn't say I loved you. He didn't say that I just like I needed you, whatever. He said, I made you special. This is not only a God complex, but it's basically like a narcissistic part playing really heavily in this relationship, because he's like, I gave you everything and you have to be respectful. You have to love me for that, whatever I gave you. I gave you the world. I gave you romantic feelings. I was picturing you and like looking at you and the stars. And Rhonda, she had this, again, split feelings. She's like, I don't know, he's so good. I don't know how I can't love this person. And she actually was behaving as a narcissist as well. Whenever she needed a confession from Joe Goldberg to get him in prison, she saved him from the fire. She saved him, not Kate, but him. And then she tried to get this information and to get confession from Joe Goldberg. And I guess it's important to mention that he fell in his own trap and she was manipulating him as well. What about Kate? I'd say I have mixed feelings about Kate. I think she was the one who asked Joe Goldberg to act and to kill her own uncle. Of course, then she felt like she was wrong and whatever. But from my point of view, when she was accusing Joe Goldberg in killing her own uncle and taking care of him, she realized that, oh, Joe loved killing. He loved this sense of power, I guess. And then she kind of got scared. But she knew this from the beginning, and he actually confessed in the season 4 that he killed people and he enjoyed this, whatever, and she accepted him. So in the middle of this, I guess, relationship, she felt scared all of a sudden because she even asked him to kill her own uncle, and he did so. That's why I can't say that Kate was that innocent. And as well as he confessed that he killed her own father, and she didn't actually feel bad about this. She said, like, yeah, he was a bad person, so it's okay if you killed him. And again, Kate acted on the same, I guess, feelings that, well, these people are bad. I'm gonna protect my family. I'm gonna protect myself. And she has this beast, and she orders, and he goes and kills. And that's why I guess Joe, he loved Kate for a long period of time, because he knew that she's a queen and he's her knight in shining armors. When if she orders and tells go and protect family, he's going to go and protect family. He's going to enjoy the process, and she's going to feel safe. That's why I think Kate is not that easy, and she's probably similar to Love, not in a way. I mean, like Love, she was a real monster, impulsive monster, and she felt like she could kill herself, and she was killing herself. Kate wasn't capable of doing that by her own, like with her own hands, but she could easily order someone on a silver plate, and they will do that for her. That's why it's weird why she turned that harsh against Joe Goldberg, because she was very similar and she really wanted to expose him. I guess it was her own way. Just do you remember that she was even willing to kill Joe? I mean, how is that making her different from Joe? How is it making her different? She's like, I'm going to kill a bastard who killed a lot of people, but you actually participated in a lot of killings. You actually ordered your own uncle. You actually didn't mind when he killed your father, and now you were ready to kill Joe. I mean, they acted on the same feelings, saving their own, I don't know, safety space, saving their families. And that's why I hated Kate. And I thought at first that she died in the fire. I still have no idea how she survived. I mean, the smoke was everywhere. That's why I thought she died, especially with a wound somewhere in her belly. That's why I don't know how they saved her miraculously. And I thought till the end, I guess, of the season 5 that he's gonna go away with this. And I thought that Joe Goldberg is gonna kind of like maybe accuse Bronte in doing all of this stuff because she was pointing a gun at him. And that's why I thought that she would probably maybe stay in prison instead of Joe Goldberg, and he would kind of manipulate any sort of facts. But then I guess it was too late. He was so messed up with so much stuff, and especially Kate having this recording of him, like, confessing that he killed Quinn. Every single bit of information led to the point that he was behind the bars. I loved the fact when they kind of ended the project and showed Joe Goldberg him behind the bars. They showed that a lot of women, they were sending some letters like, yeah, just like you were misunderstood and whatever. And he looked in the camera and he said, maybe the problem is in you as a society in general, that you try to idealize the rest of the world. And again, Joe Goldberg wasn't capable of taking responsibilities for his own actions. He tried to blame everyone else but himself. And with every single girlfriend, you can see that he was always in a position of control. He was not only like a control freak, but he tried to create a situation, and he was following his girlfriends, not even girlfriends, but a lot of like their friends and family members, and he was tracking them down through phone, that he is gonna be there and he's gonna take charge of the situation. That's why I guess he hated Quinn so much, because she always took this unexpectedly, and all of a sudden he was left with the consequences of her actions. And he knew that she was a problem. I guess he knew this with every single girlfriend, that she was a problem. But he was so smart. I mean, literally, he was so smart, especially with the key in his own hands. I was shocked, and I loved watching this mindset, honestly. I can't say that I fell in love with Joe Goldberg as a person and a protagonist. He's more like antagonist than a protagonist. And I loved watching the way he was thinking and acting, and he was finding some ways out. But at the same time, of course, deep down, you want him to be caught. You want him to be punished for whatever he had done to these women, and not only women, but for every single person. Maybe I thought that he's gonna just, be caught by someone else. Bronte was, I hated the monologue right in the end of season 5, and she was like, yeah, finally we managed to do that, and Back got her book reprinted as well, and whatever. And she was like, I'm this badass bitch that created this whole mess, and because of me, he's behind the bars. Probably, yeah, because of Bronte, he was behind the bars, but I don't know, something about her monologue was off. It was just like, she still got her fruits from this whole situations, not only getting him behind the bars, but she published her own book, and she actually got her own prize, I guess. That's why probably I hated this whole thing, because she actually wasn't that innocent as well, in a way. But let me know, what do you think, guys? I think he is one of a kind in a way. A lot of people loved You serials because you could see the story from the point of view of a serial killer. Not even serial killer, but from a point of view of, this crime and punishment, the thought behind this. Whenever you watch some serials about like Jeffrey Dahmer or any other maniac, you can see like just his actions, but you don't really know what's in his mind. Most of the time, you just don't really know what's in his mind. And when you're watching You series, you can see what is his kind of like idea behind all of these crimes and behind all of it. It's just like savior complex. Believe it or not, if you saw Joe Goldberg doing this stuff without explanation, without his own narrative, you would have hated him. But when you hear his thoughts and when you hear his explanation, you kind of feel for him. That's interesting perspective of a director. That's why I really like the serials, because they were unique and different from whatever we saw over, I guess, any other platforms. And especially I like the fact that every single season was different and wasn't looking the same. Whenever you watch, it's just same old pattern on and on and on and on. Like Dexter. I started watching Dexter season 1, and yeah, it was really cool and interesting, I'd say. Season 2 was a little bit boring because similar patterns, like, yeah, he's killing, and every single time there's some crime scene and he tries to resolve it, and he has some other issues. I mean, for me, Dexter wasn't interesting from season 2 or season 3. And You is always different and always surprising you with some new information, with some new stories, and with some new, girlfriend. And all of these girlfriends were different. And that's what I really liked. And it was captivating to watch Joe Goldberg, because while he was researching and doing his kind of homework with his girlfriends, still, Quinn, yeah, that was a masterpiece, because he did not expect this to be crazy monster-like, and Mary Ann to be alive. And you're like, oh, okay, he didn't know that. You kind of see him as know everything about everyone, but then you can tell that he doesn't actually know everything about everyone. And that's what I really liked about the series. As well as Kate. She was, still badass, in a way. And especially season 4, when he had this split personality, that was so good. It was really good, guys. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this series? What do you think about You in particular, Joe Goldberg? Do you like him, or you hate him, or you have no idea? Yeah, let me know. I love you all so much, guys, and I'm going to see you in my next podcast. That's fine with me. Bye-bye.